Hey everybody, Marie Bartholdi here, joined by Paul Chian, and we're going to get the privilege of watching Ken Yukuhiro's draft. And you mentioned he drafts in kind of unique style, Paul.
Yeah, I actually got to cover his draft during Japanese Nationals, and basically every time I thought he was going to take one of two cards, he took card number 3. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to approach this Dominaria draft.
All right, let's take a look at the table and where he was sitting in relation to Gregor Kowalski. He was in seat 4, Gregor was in seat 8, so essentially across the table from one another entirely. What does that mean?
So what that means is, for the most part, their picks aren't really going to influence each other because they're so far apart. So there's, actually a reasonable chance that he might be kind of in the colors that Greg is in because they're so far apart. And yeah, again, there's no like sending signals or anything like that, just because they're so far away from each other in the draft.
All right, let's take a look at what he managed to put together for this Dominaria draft. Yesterday, he had kind of a sweet deck. It was red and green. He had 3 Halars, 3 Run Amucks. I don't know, sounds pretty good to me.
Sounds pretty nice.
All right, well, here we go. Pack 1, pick 1 for Ken Yukuhiro. Dominaria draft number 2, pulled to the front, a fight with fire, Paul.
Yeah, so this is a pretty easy fight with fire. This is considered just one of the best cards overall in the set, better than many of the rares, and one of the 2 best uncommons, I'm going to say, in the set. You have fight with fire, you have cards like the Eldest Reborn, but yeah, I think he's going to take the fight with fire here. But currently, he's just kind of looking through the pack and seeing, what are the other cards that people are going to take. You look at the Juggernaut, you look at the Chronicler, stuff like that. And when you pick up a spell as powerful as a card like Cart with Fire, cards like the Gitu Chronicler go up in value. I mean, it's already a good card, but being able to rebuy this card, you can just kill them by casting this twice, 20 damage.
It's one of the most beautiful things you can do in Dominaria.
Right, exactly.
All right, taking a look here at pick number 2.
So I see a Serra Angel, which is definitely the strongest card I see here. If he favors red-green, I could see a consideration for the Yavimaya Sapherd. But outside of that, the rest of the pack looks pretty weak. But I think Serra Angel is enough stronger at this point that he's just going to take the Serra here. I mean, this Giant Flyer, it's been an amazing limited card since its creation, 20 years ago.
Right, still iconic today.
Exactly.
So if he picks up Serra Angel here, I know we're still kind of like figuring things out, but do you like red-white in Dominaria?
I think red-white is definitely one of the worst archetypes to be in, but keep in mind, Fight with Fire is, a splashable card.
Sure.
And he's still trying to figure out the signals here, right? I mean, it's possible, it sucks, but if you don't get any red cards, it's possible to ditch red and just move into the color combinations that's open. And, these are the best players in the world. They know what they're doing when it comes to draft, and they'll be able to try to get a good beat on what's open.
All right, so if he does favor red-green, here's a pretty good one here, Grand Warlord Radha.
Yeah, Grand Warlord Radha, definitely the card I'm looking at here. There's no other white cards in this pack. I mean, it looks like a Gideon's Reproach actually at the end.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're just comparing the power level of the cards, I mean, this creature just does so much work. So, I mean, that's definitely something that I would consider over even something like, a Llanowar Elf. Yeah,
he kicked it yesterday. Why not potentially kick it today? Grand Warlord Radha is the pick there. Pick number 3 for Ken Yukuhiro.
Maybe he's sliding into Simon Gertson's favorite archetype,
yes.
Red-Green Kicker.
That's right. Simon loves that. Oh, Karn's Temporal Sundering. It's a trap.
Yeah, Karn's Temporal Sundering, definitely. You could have a lot of, you can try to set up a draft where you have a lot of legendaries, but he has no blue cards. Call the Cavalry as a reasonable consideration here. He's still not married to any of his picks. He does have a Serra Angel in his deck, so, taking a premium, not premium, but a solid white card to go along with that Serra Angel makes some sense. And really, nothing else in the pack is something that I would consider. So,
why do you think Call the Cavalry was so good in Dominaria?
It's just the fact that it produces 2 bodies. I think a card like Call the Cavalry will be a solid card in any format.
Ooh, Shauna Sisse's Legacy right here for him.
Yeah, so again, you take a look at this pack, really nothing else I'm interested in. So it looks like he's going with the Shauna here. There is a possibility at this point that Ken Yukuhiro could go green-white.
Sure.
And then look to maybe splash red for Fight with Fire, potentially even the Radha. Green does give you additional mana fixing and cards like Grow from the Ashes.
And Call the Cavalry fits in very nicely to the green-white Swarm archetype if he ends up getting any of those cards.
Right. Yeah, Shauna
she can get out of control.
Yeah, she can, definitely.
All right, let's take a look here. Time of Ice. Academy Drake in this pack.
Yeah, so taking a look at this pack, you might make the shift. You're like, you know what, blue might actually be open here, right? Because a few picks have been taken already, but there's an Academy Drake, Cold Water Snapper, which is a nice combination with cards like Arcane Flight, and also a Time of Ice.
Right.
So which is a pretty good card in a tempo deck. But it looks like Ken is not interested. Just going to continue passing the blue cards here, and just going to try to cut off his colors as much as he can. Yeah, Bloodstone Goblin.
Not bad.
Not bad. It's a 2-mana creature, and if you are the red-green archetype, you will have a fair amount of kicker cards. So a 2-mana 2/2 with upside is certainly a card that you will play in your deck.
Keldon Overseer is the pickup for Ken here, 3/1 with haste, and has that threaten effect tacked on.
Yeah. This is definitely a nice little mana sink. It's actually underperformed a bit relative to kind of when it first came out. Everybody looked at this and goes, this is going to be a game changer, but that's not exactly how it's played out. But again, if I'm red-green kicker, I'm more than happy, putting a copy of this into my deck.
Ancient Animus is pulled to the front of the pack here. Removal.
Yeah, if Ken has a good amount of large bodies, it is a reasonable fight spell. I'm actually not the biggest fan of just the 2-mana fight spell, but there's not a lot of great options in that pack.
It's a card that I thought would end up being better than it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Sylvan Awakening here. Now here's a card that has the potential to be extremely powerful.
Right. Usually something that maybe you consider as a sideboard option. I mean, somehow if your deck has a bunch of Grow from the Ashes and you get a bunch of lands in play, you could use it as an additional fireball effect.
I've certainly been killed by my opponent's lands with that card before.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is interesting now. He's brought Charge to the front.
Yeah, I mean, it's between Charge and the Fire Elemental. I think
might as well.
He won't be very happy playing either in his deck, and at this point, we're just taking some cards. But yeah, like you said, if he is somehow the green-white Swarm deck, something to consider.
All right, he's going to pick up a second charge here. One good charge deserves another.
Yeah, so at this point, just taking the cards in his color, just trying to do whatever he can to make sure that he gets fed the red, green, and white cards in pack 2.
All right, rounding out the last few picks of pack number 1 here for Ken Yukuhiro. Green, white, and red seem to be the direction that we're
Oh, wow, didn't
heading.
even take the rare there. No.
Yeah, such,
what if he
discipline.
gets like 13 legends?
I know, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. Paul, what do you think of this pack number 1 for Ken?
I think it was a little bit mediocre. I mean, it started out really exciting with that turn 1 Fight with Fire.
Oh, yeah.
And then a Sarah Angel. So 2 really powerful cards. But the rest of the pack was pretty weak, in my opinion. So I think right now Ken is still trying to figure out where he wants to be. I think certainly, Fight with Fire being the best card in his deck, or in the pile of cards that he has, he really is heavily incentivized to want to try to put that in his deck. But if you look, he's just kind of Naya.
Right.
Right? I mean, he's got a red base, I guess. He's got the Grand Lord, Warlord Radha, but he's also got the Shana. So, he got the Sarah Angel, but he didn't see a whole lot of white after that. So
no.
He might look to abandon that as well. Getting a Shana doesn't necessarily mean that white is open. It's just somebody might not be in the green-white color combination.
And it's interesting here to see how Ken is kind of constructing his mini deck that he's put together here
yeah.
from pack 1.
He's got like 3 different mini decks, and he's trying to figure out,
which one's the best.
Yeah, and he did do a good job, to be fair, of cutting off, the Naya cards.
Yeah.
So I think in pack 2, he should get rewarded here.
All right, what are we hoping for here? Another Fight with Fire, maybe?
Yeah, that's a pretty good place to start.
Let's put it on
go
there.
with that one.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, Fight with Fire. I mean, if he's going to play all 3 colors, Skittering Surveyor.
Oh, man, always Skittering Surveyor.
Always the Skittering Surveyor.
You know what? I haven't seen a single one.
You never see it.
No.
People just take it first pick. It just happens.
Pack 1, pick 1.
Yeah,
it's great.
Very, very good.
Skittering Surveyor for president.
Yeah, absolutely. You can never have too many. I'm trying to figure out what the upper limit of Skittering Surveyors is.
Right.
Maybe like 4, 3, 4, something like that. So.
The 5th one, you're going to pack it in?
Yeah, just every limited format. But especially this one, because on top of
Yes.
that, the fact that it triggers Historic is very, very important and valuable.
The ability to play multiple colors in your deck, too, really important for somebody like Ken, especially right now if he's thinking about Naya.
And the only issue with one of the issues with Ken's deck currently is that he's got a bunch of red, green, and white cards. Oh my goodness!
Oh my gosh!
All right.
Okay.
I mean, you know what?
We got our wish, but also
There's a Karn as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that is. I'm actually not sure. I'm
what
actually
is the decision
not sure.
here, Paul?
What? Look at him. He doesn't know either. You don't get this pick
How
very
do you
often.
choose?
I mean, I think it's the fight with fire, but you know what? I'm not. I don't actually know.
I don't know.
I mean, both are incredibly powerful. Having multiple fight with fires does give you the ability to just kind of fire off one of them, you know, willy-nilly, I guess.
Right.
But at the same time, Karn is just so difficult to deal with. You know, once it's on the board, it's just going to get you ahead on cards. And yeah,
He's taking
the
Karn.
Karn. The Karn is great.
Wow, you never, you know, this is what the person sitting next to him has got to be
It's
like,
what? Yeah, exactly.
By the way, that's Marcial Carvalho who's getting that fight with fire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Karn, again, you know, it's incredibly difficult to deal with. And over the course of the game, it's just basically a 4-mana draw card every turn.
Right.
Right?
And the 5 loyalty, I mean, it just gets out of control.
Yeah, it just starts at 6 loyalty and you get a card right away. And, you know, if you do manage to pick up a couple artifacts here and there, you can win with some of those constructs.
All right, so here's a very interesting pick for Ken. We've got Call of the Cavalry and we've got Teshar in here.
Yeah, so Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle, you know, if you just look at the body by itself, 4 mana, 2/2 flyer, not great, but it is a powerful effect. You know, the fact that, you know, it's not too difficult to put a few historic spells in your deck to be able to recur some cards in your graveyard. You know, it's just not that hard to be able to trigger once or twice during the game. But it looks like he went for the Call of the Cavalry here. You need to put more creatures onto the battlefield.
You got to protect Karn.
You got to protect Karn, exactly.
Yes. Oh, you know what hurts my heart right now? That Adeli's sitting at the back of this
Yeah, you know,
pack.
that's you know, one of the premium uncommons, likely the best of the gold uncommons, purely because that archetype is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And also this card specifically in that archetype just does a lot of work. But of course, that's not something that he's interested in. And really, there's
What are you
not
gonna
a whole
take?
lot. I don't even see a red, green, or white card in this pack that I'd be happy with. You know, I guess the Rampaging Cyclops is something that, whoa.
All right, Isolated Chapel.
Nice little speculative isolated chapel here.
Keep your options open.
Well,
I
you know
like
what?
it.
You know, black does give you 2 very powerful removal spells as splash
Eviscerate.
options. You have Vicious Offering, Eviscerate, and maybe even an Eldest Reborn, you know, dream big.
Urza's Ruinous Blast back there.
Yeah, I don't know if he's interested in that. He does, I mean, I guess he has a Karn. He has some legends. At the same time, you know, there's just like, I don't actually know what his curve looks like, but he could consider just taking something like a Mesa Unicorn, you know, just a decent body. And if he wants to be green, I guess he can take Marwyn, but Marwyn is just kind of a 3-mana creature.
Right.
There's not a ton of elves.
All right,
So, yeah.
Mesa Unicorn is going to be the pickup here. So have we kind of solidified that white is for sure one of our colors at
Yeah,
this point?
it looks like he's kind of leaning towards being red-white here, and there is
Well,
a red-white
there you
card.
go.
Now, Tiana, at the end of the day, probably the worst of the gold cards. We saw the best. She, most of the time, is basically just a 5-mana 3/3 flyer with First Strike, which is a totally reasonable card, but
Sure.
you know, not quite as exciting as a lot of the other gold uncommons.
We see he's also considering Get to Journey Mage and Run Amok, which we know he likes Run Amok. He had 3 in his deck yesterday.
He did, yeah, and he might be just looking to take things cheaper on the curve because, again, Tiana is more of a filler card than anything.
And there you see the pickup of Get to Journey Mage. And here, I think, is just a prime example of how hard it is to draft at this level.
Right.
And remember what you've taken and
Yeah.
what else you still need, especially when you're exploring 3 colors.
Yeah, I've been getting so spoiled now because now just in the test drafts, you can just kind of look through all your
Yeah.
cards all the time. Just kind of forgot what it was like to be able to just remember all the cards that you've drafted.
Sergeant at Arms, the pickup, which is pretty good for what he seems to be doing.
Right.
Maybe those charges that he's got could head into the main deck.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you know, looking at Ken's deck, you know, he has opened some very powerful cards and has been past that Sarah Angel. You know, at this point now, he's trying to figure out, like, hey, what are some of the other ways I can actually win?
Right.
You know, if you're red-white, a lot of the cards in red-white are aggressively slanted, so he wants to make sure that he has a good mana curve and he can just beat people down. And then, of course, you have Plan B, which is, you know, Fight with Fire, Karn, and Sarah Angel.
Rampaging Cyclops and Healing Grace.
I do like the Cyclops. It's a very, very good blocker. And, you know, not as good on offense, so, you know, especially in red-white, you don't want too many copies. But I'm pretty happy playing the first copy most of the time.
All right, well, he does have some options still left here.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of interesting. I really like Memorials. I like
Right.
the Memorial to Glory because it's a spell land, you know. You're just going to be able to get extra value in the late game when you get flooded out and take it. But Ken, keep in mind, after pack 1, didn't really have enough playables, so he might just be more inclined to look to just kind of fill out his curve. And those are the picks, right? Because,
Right.
you know, you look at the Memorial and you're like, this is a free card to take in your draft. That's not always the case because you need to make sure that you have the 23 playable cards first, you know, and
Like, great, you have enough lands.
exactly. It's like, yeah, I have 7 memorials in my deck. I just get to get all these free spells. It's like, but dude, you got 15 playables.
Yeah,
You know, it
it's a
doesn't
really
work.
good point. Knight of New Benalia, if he's able to pick up something like a Pegasus Courser,
Right.
those two are BFFs as well. Rounding out the pack here, pack number 2.
A lot of
blue
one-mana
left.
blue cards,
Yeah.
but yeah, not a whole lot here. I mean, if he's fortunate enough to find maybe a sideboard card, that would be nice. But you know, a card like Invoke the Divine is actually in pretty high demand. There's a lot of good targets
Oh,
for it,
yes.
and people actually take it pretty high.
We saw Gregor hate it earlier
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
our first
well,
draft.
I mean, the thing is, so much of Gregor's game plan is, you know, winning with cards like the Eldest Reborn and Phyrexian Scriptures.
Exactly.
And he just doesn't want people to sideboard those cards against him.
All right, so let's review what Ken Yukuhiro has put together with 2 packs of Dominaria. What do you think, Paul?
I think it's okay. I think it's just been a kind of a strange draft. You know, he didn't see a whole lot of green. It looks like he's kind of locking himself into kind of looking to be like a red-white aggressive deck. But like at the same time, you know, he's just kind of got a lot of these like filler creatures with
So the creature quality low.
creature quality low, but sometimes it doesn't matter when you're red-white.
Sure.
Because all you're looking to do is curve out and use combat tricks. For example, he took that Gitu Journey Mage. He doesn't have wizards in his deck. It's just a 3-mana 3/2.
Yeah.
Which is pretty weak. So, you know, he at this point, you know, it's nice that he's got a reasonable mana curve here. He's got a good amount of 2s and 3s and 4s, so he can curve out. I think what Ken's going to really look for in this next pack is some removal. He's kind of lacking there, and maybe a couple of combat tricks. Like you said, you know, the run amok is something that's really strong in kind of the red-white aggressive deck.
You can see him kind of playing with some of these green cards that are higher on the power level.
Yeah, it's really unlikely that he's going to be able to splash those cards, especially if you're a red-white base. The only mana fixing that you have available is that Skittering Surveyor. But you know, aside from, you know, maybe picks 1 and 2, you're just not going to get that card in a draft of this caliber. So I think he's very likely to just be red-white and not play any of those green cards. But you know, maybe he goes pick 1, pick 2, Skittering Surveyor, and it gets a lot easier. But the thing is, those green cards aren't even strong enough where it's like really warranting a splash.
Rada really wants you to be red-green.
Right. You want to really play her on curve.
And there you see the hallmark card of his draft so far, Karn, Scion of Urza, that he
Right.
picked up in pack number 2. Do you think his deck's built to utilize Karn very well?
Well, he's got lots of blockers, which
That's
is nice. And you know, the thing with Karn in a limited environment is it's just going to be great in any deck. Aggressive, control, it doesn't matter. It's just a source of card advantage. It's very flexible. And
Excuse me, Karn advantage.
Oh, right, of course. And very difficult to deal with. So yeah, I see that Shivan Fire there, and I'm pretty sure he's just going to slam that. Nothing else really even worth considering in this pack. You know, we see some powerful green and black cards there. There's
Cast
a Cast
Down, Grun.
Grun, Mending of Dominaria, but of course he's not in those color combinations. So he's going to take that Shivan Fire and be very happy, actually.
You know, Shivan Fire was excellent in Dominaria.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is one of the best commons in the set, and you know, he just needs that interaction. He's really lacking. He's got that Fight with Fire, but I don't really consider that, like, you feel pretty bad when you cast Fight with Fire on turn 3.
You're like, no,
you want to do
I wanna
everything
kick this.
possible not to play it on turn 3.
Shivan Fire, so excellent because not only is it flexible, the 1 mana cost of the removal spell enables you to do something else that turn.
Exactly, especially in a red-white deck where oftentimes you want to curve out, and being able to double spell Shivan Fire into a 3-drop or a 2-drop can just be the tempo required for you to actually win that match.
Okay, what options do you like here? Run Amok, Baird, Steward of Argive in here, Gideon's Reproach, and another Journey Mage.
So yeah, I think he's looking at one of the combat tricks. The Journey Mage looks pretty weak here, especially because he doesn't have any other wizards. So, you know, I'd be looking at the Gideon's Reproach and the Run Amok. This doesn't look like a bear deck, and on top of that, he has a good amount of 4-drops already. He's got
Cyclops.
He's got the Cyclops, he's got a couple of Call to Cavalries, and he's got a Karn. So I think he's really looking for tricks and interaction. So Gideon's Reproach makes sense. Run Amok would be the other consideration. But he's actually kind of weak to flyers too.
That's
so,
true.
You know, Gideon's Reproach is a little more flexible because you can actually play a more defensive game.
Ooh, there's that Pegasus Courser, but Arvad the Cursed may be calling his name. He picked up an isolated chapel.
But you know, he again, he is concerned about his mana curve. He doesn't have a lot of great threes actually. So Pegasus Courser is one of the best cards in the red-white deck.
You know, I love Pegasus Courser, and we're going to see it again in Guilds of Ravnica under a different name and at Uncommon.
At Uncommon, it's a little strong at Common, especially in that format with the Mentor mechanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we'll get to that.
Little preview for you there.
A little preview for Sunday. Really excited about that Team Sealed event for sure.
Oh, me too, me too.
Yeah.
All right, so Pegasus Courser, the pickup there for Yukuhiro. Triumph of Gerard, Short Sword, Mesa, Unicorn. Unicorn here?
Yeah, you know, it might actually be close between the Unicorn and the Short Sword. Ken doesn't have a ton of mana sinks. I know he's got that Fight with Fire, but he might opt for the Short Sword because he's got a bunch of dinky little creatures. And, you know, a singular copy of Short Sword goes a long way to affect combat. At the same time, Mesa Unicorn's a pretty solid body. 2 mana, 2/2 lifelink, helps you race, but Ken's going with the Short Sword.
Yeah, Short Sword can get a little annoying sometimes, particularly in the Saproling deck. But
oh, yeah. But even a deck with a bunch of, you know, bears and you just get brick walled by like a 3/3, you're like, oh man, I guess I have to draw my combat trick. But Short Sword is a repeatable way to kind of trade up against bigger creatures.
Davenant Trapper in here for him.
Yeah, there's an Invoke the Divine, but I think he's just interested in the Trapper. He has that Short Sword. I don't think he has a ton of ways to trigger it, but you know, it's still a pretty solid 3-drop. And again, mana curve issues. I would think that he's going to go with the Trapper here over the Baird.
Helps you attack as well, which is exactly what his deck wants to do.
Exactly.
Even if it only taps something down like once or twice throughout the history of the game, you're fine with it.
Yeah, but it's a 3-mana 3/2. You're kind of you're an aggressive deck. You're pretty happy with that. So. I don't know why he put Saproling Migration to the front. He's like, man, green was open. I guess I should have taken it. But for Ken, I would guess that Aven Sentry is kind of where he wants to be. Just a solid evasive creature.
3/2 flying for 4.
Yeah.
Always play it.
Yeah, especially in an aggressively slanted deck.
And
or
there's
even
some
a mediumly slanted deck.
some added sky power for Ken there too, along with the Courser.
Yeah, and so you see Keldon Raider there in the pack, which is a very, very solid creature. But Ken, again, has tons of 4s. And we talked about how he wanted interaction. He wanted combat tricks. And Adamant Will is exactly the type of card that he wanted.
Adamant Will is something you constantly have to think about if you're playing against somebody who's in white. All right, do they have the Adamant Will?
Right. One of the nice luxuries of being red-white is that you don't necessarily need to take the combat tricks as highly because both red and white are aggressive generally. So oftentimes there's going to be multiple combat tricks, and you don't want like 7 combat tricks in your deck a lot of the time. So he's already got 2 charges. So I imagine he's going to take the glider here. Just again, you know, if you're aggressive, curve filler, you know, oftentimes you might sideboard it out. But you know, Ken wants to be the aggressor.
Can't block, don't care.
Doesn't matter. 3 mana, 2-power flyer. Sometimes that'll get the job done.
Sergeant at Arms number 2 here for Yukuhiro, which is just fine on 3, even better on 6.
Right. Just that flexibility, and that's what makes Kicker so great. And here's a very easy Invoke the Divine.
Nice pickup here late in pack number 3.
I mean, it's one of those cards that's like, I mean, depending on the draft too, because you play with the people in your pod, you know the types of powerful enchantments and artifacts that you've passed. So, you know, in certain instances, you can main deck it.
He saw Time of Ice, he saw a Mending of Dominaria, and he doesn't know what's going on in Craig's deck, but...
Yeah. But at the same time, you know, Invoke the Divine, something I like a little more to main deck in kind of more of my mid-range decks. If I'm a little more on the aggressive side, you know, sometimes you can't afford to have kind of a dead card in your hand.
Arvad the Cursed, Board the Weatherlight, Tragic Poet. Here are the final few pickups for Ken Yukuhiro, rounding out pack number 3. I wonder if that Arvad will make the cut. Just kidding.
Yeah, seems unlikely. It'd be very ambitious. He doesn't even have any other legendary creatures, I don't think.
All right, so Paul, what do you think of Ken's draft overall?
You know, I think it's okay. He's got some, you know, very, very powerful cards that can win him the game by themselves. So that always gives you a chance. But and he's got a decent curve. It's not something that I'm like super excited like that Greg drafted. Like for Gregor, I think he has just like an amazing deck,
Right.
2-1-3-0 guaranteed. But Ken definitely can win. I'm not like too upset that I have the deck. And yeah, fight with fire and Karn. Go to distance.
All right, well, I'll be excited to see it. Paul Cheon, thanks so much. Ken Yukuhiro's draft.